So this is gonna be a few weeks after what I think so far about my Sony A7C camera. Now let me start by saying, if I haven't already, the whole point of me getting this camera was to have a very small full frame body that I can use as a backup on my like wedding days and things, but also be able to take this on trips and travel because I love my R6, but it's big. I also don't want anything to happen to it. And I thought about getting a second R6 for my business, but like again, the weight of carrying it and its lenses was so much that I like don't enjoy taking it on trips. This is so tiny and light, and this is with the 85 on it. I do also have the 50. Now I just got the cheap ones. These are both 1.8 lenses. That's all I need. I want to do a comparison, I haven't done it yet, with my Canon R6 with the 1.850 as well. Because I'm pretty sure that these lenses are gonna give very, very similar results. And the whole point is this camera is a lot smaller. Right now, I don't have the correct lens on here, but like, oh, that's heavy. Right now, this has my 50 1.2 EF on my R6, and then compared to this with the 85 on it. And this is so heavy, like this is actually lighter than this is with my 85 f2 on it, so, and smaller. So that was kind of the whole point of the purpose of getting it. Now, I also made sure, because I was worried, like everybody said, about making sure that the color science matches, because if I'm gonna use this as my backup camera, like I shoot Canon. Well, to be honest, like Julia Trotti and I think Mitch Lally also did it, videos where they compared using Sony and Canon, and it was so easy in Lightroom to just adjust the colors slightly so that, especially if you're shooting in RAW, they're gonna look very similar. I've been doing it since then. I've tested photos on myself where I have put both in RAW, put them in Lightroom and adjust them and with my same edits, and you cannot tell which one is which, especially if they're taken on the same focal length. I use this as my backup to an engagement shoot that I did recently where I had my R6 with the giant 85 1.2, which that's gonna look very different because I didn't have the 85 on this, I had the 50. So you obviously could tell which one was which just based on the depth of field. But other than that, like the colors came out so similar, that was not an issue, so that's been great. Again, like I said, the fact that it's so light and tiny is great too. Like without the lens on, this is very similar in size to my Fuji X100V. So that's very small, because when we travel, I still want to take my Fuji, but also want to take a full frame, because like the Fuji is just great for the everyday kind of shots. It doesn't always nail focus. This should in theory have great focus, but also I want that full frame look. Like if we take like family, like my husband and his parents are taking us out west next year, if we take like a big family photo in front of something, I want to be able to get that cool full frame look just because I like how that looks. And at the moment, I only have the 50 and the 85. We'll see if I feel like I need more. If I need a 35, I'll just use the Fuji because it's already built in like that. I do have another Fuji coming on the way, so I am loving Fuji now. I just wish they had like a full frame because I love their stuff. But, so my biggest complaints about this, and what most people have complained about, is Sony did not update the menu when they released this camera. So when you go to the menu, which also I hate that the menu button's up there, but you have the old menu. This menu sucks. It is so hard to find things. And since I bought this camera used, it didn't come with a manual. So I've had to like Google everything, and I'm still Googling things because I didn't realize this also used an older app that's not labeled as Sony in the App Store. So I downloaded the Sony Alpha app, could not figure for the life of me how to connect this camera to the app. And I still kind of can't figure it out even with the other apps. So it's a different one. It's called like Imaging Edge. It kind of sucks. Like, so connecting was really hard, but then I was only able to use it to like take photos and it would import them direct like immediately. But I'm like, well, what if I just want to import photos I already took? So this is where I still use my little SD reader, which honestly that thing's faster. I do that half the time with my Canon and Fuji anyway, even though they can connect easily. The other thing I have a complaint about is trying to use the interval timer on this, because it seems like it's only meant for like nature stuff or starscapes or things. I want an interval timer so that I can set it and then go jump in the photo and take multiple photos without having to like try and figure out how to set the focus point. Like, cause my Canon, when I do that, yeah, the first like 2 photos are not focused on me, but then it refocuses and I get all these great shots doing that. Like if my husband and I are trying to take photos and using a tripod, that's great. Now, to be fair, if I have someone else in the photos with me for this one, I can always just set it to focus on them and then run into the photo, and that should be fine. But the only way I was able to use the interval timer successfully was when I finally figured out how to connect the camera to my phone and use the remote option on my phone to start the shutter. And it's just like, that's just very silly to me to have to do all that. It says, like, when you look at the interval timer thing, it even says like autofocus tracking, and it says like mild, high, or low. So I would have thought that meant it's like refocusing between shots, but it doesn't. And I can't find a single video about that or anything, so I don't know if people just don't use it for that. So I do like miss my Canon for those reasons. Like, there's been parts of me that's like, do I get an RP again? But I already sold mine back in like December. I don't want to get a new one. I do think it was maybe better than this, but it was still bigger than this. And then I still have bigger lenses, so I'm kind of like, this is fine. Because the 85 f2, oh my goodness. Okay, the 85 f2 is still bigger than the Sony 85. So like, I would still be taking a much bigger, heavier lens. Like, I'm not gonna lie, right now this feels about the same weight holding just this lens versus holding a camera and a lens. And that's a big difference when you're traveling. And yeah, I know I have all the Micro Four Thirds gear, but I'm not happy with it anymore, to be honest. I'll keep some of them for nostalgia reasons, but it's not what I want anymore. That's why I'm leaning more towards Fuji now, at least APS-C, but that's why I wanted this too. And then I still have my 5D4 as like another backup for weddings and stuff. Like, so now if my husband is coming along to do more like candids and documentary stuff while I do the rest, like I'll probably give him the 5D4 with like my 50L lens on it just to take standard shots while I get everything else. And this works fine as my backup. It leaves less to be harnessed onto me that's less weight, because if I have that giant 85 on mine, yeah, I will probably, I don't know what I'll do yet at the moment, because it hasn't even come up yet. But anyway, the one thing I do love about this, not only thing, I do love the shutter sound, which maybe is very silly, but like, it is very satisfying. Like, it sounds great. That was the other thing I don't like though. If you want it to be silent, which my Canon's never silent, it's just very, very quiet. If I don't want this giant shutter noise and I am taking photos indoor, it's just like my Micro Four Thirds, where suddenly then you get all the banding issues. And so it's like, I'm trying to be like incognito taking photos at church, like candid photos, and I either have to have the sound on or I get banding. And that's frustrating, because like, I never really realized it, but my Canon, I don't actually turn on silent. It just isn't loud. Like when I take a photo, it's just very quiet. And yeah, you can still hear it. I think my 5D4 was louder than this though. But it just, I'm curious. Oh man, let's see. Okay, that's definitely louder. But this is also a DSLR, it's not mirrorless. It's not gonna be silent. And then I am making a mess back here. Like, so I did sell my EM1 Mark II and my f2.8, 12 to 40 f2.8 Pro lens for my Olympus, because I really don't use zooms that much. I still have the little pancake kit lens on this EM10, which is great and fine, but I don't use it. I use primes. But I did sell that one because I was trying to make money to get other things that I wanted more. I will not be selling my EM5 Mark III and my 45mm Pro lens. I will keep that. That is not going anywhere, nor is my Pen F. I do think Olympus could make a new Pen F and do very well with that right now. And this just has the 20mm on it from Panasonic. And then I still have a 42.5 from Panasonic, the little one, and then I have my 75. And those are all the Olympus things I have left. I don't plan on selling any more of my Olympus stuff, but I just don't really use it. And like, yeah, so the size of this, and that would be like basically a 90mm equivalent lens on this. So it's about the same size. Let me see if you can see that. About the same size, and honestly, about the same weight. I think this is actually heavier because this is a higher quality piece of glass on it. But I'm not as happy with the photos on those, so that's why I wanted a full frame, because then I can also use it as my backup. That was a lot of information, but just my thoughts lately since I've got the A7C compared to the other things that I have. and what I plan to use it for. So if anybody knows about the interval timer thing, please let me know because I'm so frustrated with that.